started here. Okay, if you guys remember, the ladder of abstraction is your ability to move from more general to specific information, or from more specific information to more general information. Okay, so if we look at these two paragraphs here, I'm going to show you how you go from a unsubstantiated, underdeveloped paragraph like this one to one that looks like this, right? So you could see a major fundamental difference between the revision and the original body paragraph. And I was able to actually revise this body paragraph based on what I've already written here. So using the ladder of abstraction, I'm looking at the language I've already chosen to figure out what I need to unpack using that 5WH method that I taught you guys, okay? So we're just to recap real quick. Let's look at the ladder of abstraction. Okay, remember the ladder of abstraction, at the top of the ladder, you have to work a lot harder to abstract from your own imagination what you think a writer means, because they are using such general and vague information, right? So let's take humans, right? So you would think humans is not so abstract, but it actually is, because you can unpack a lot about humans, right? So if we go down the ladder of abstraction, we're going to get more detailed, and we're going to do that by breaking down sort of the who of humans, right? So maybe we get towards the middle part right here, and we say teenagers, right? Okay, so that is a lot more specific than just humans, because we are actually referring to their age group. Okay. We can even get more specific than that, and we could say American teenagers. So we not only have their age group, but we also have their nationality. Okay. Still, even more specific than that, we could say young American teenage women or teenage girls, right? And then we have further denoted their age, their nationality, and their sex, right? Or their gender. Those are two different things, but for the sake of the argument here, we're going to use it interchangeably. Okay, so you can see more abstractly, there's a lot that we can unpack from what humans mean, right? If I say human, you might picture something completely different in your head than I might picture in my head. So it's really important that we look at sort of the generality of language that we're using throughout our paragraph to figure out how we can get more specific. And in doing so, we're painting a much clearer picture for our audience and allowing them to arrive at sort of a clarity of meaning of what we intend for them to understand from what we're writing. Okay? So that was just a brief overview again of the ladder of abstraction. Now remember the 5WH method here, okay? When you're going to unpack certain generalities in your language or in your sentences, you're gonna choose who, when, where, what, why, and how, okay? Now, obviously, you're not going to choose every single one of these. You're going to choose which one makes the most sense for the context of the sentence. Now, you're probably wondering, well, how do I know which words to ask these questions for? Like, if I'm going to go unpack a particular word in a sentence, how do I know which word to apply the line of inquiry from the 5WH method? Okay. Well, my answer to that is you're going to look mostly at your nouns, which is a person, place, or thing, or your verbs, which is the action being done in the sentence. Okay. So let's just go through briefly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through this paragraph as if this was my draft and I was going to be submitting this assignment for the ladder of abstraction deadline that's due this week for all of you guys, okay? All right. So I've asked you to go through, and I've asked you to underline the nouns or verbs that have the potential to be unpacked, right? Okay? So let's do that now. Now, that's not to say that when I go to revise that I'm going to absolutely unpack each and every one of these, okay? But what I want to do is I want to make it very evident the different parts of my sentences and paragraph that I could choose to unpack, right? And again, you're not going to unpack every single one, right? Some of your language you want to keep a little bit more broad depending on where you are in the paragraph. Like, for instance, at the beginning of a paragraph, you're going to stay a little broader because you are opening up with the topic sentence. Okay? So, humans these days are obsessed with technology. Okay? People's also kind of a broad word, right? People spend so much of their time on media. Okay? So, how, right? How do they spend their time on media? So spend, right? Spend could also be underlined, right? Media could be underlined. Okay. Let's see here. Individuals, because that's also broad. Okay. We could be more specific about separate points, right? Okay. What are they doing when they're sitting for hours at a time? So we want to be specific about their actual activity they're engaging in. And then we're bringing in a source here, right? But who is Jack Starr and why should I care, right? Well, in order to make an argument and substantiate your argument with research, you want to let the reader know who your source is by maybe including a profession, okay? And I'll show you that when we get to the revision in just a minute, okay? All right, so kids spend upwards of 3 to 4 hours a day accumulating on social media. That's pretty specific. Whether they consume media all at once or in small tidbits, they are still wasting large swaths of time on an activity, okay? So what's the activity, right? That's something that could be developed. Return on their investment, okay? What does that mean, right? How could we get more specific with that phrase? I didn't mean to do that, okay? Human development. What part of human development? What do we mean by that, right? So once you've gone through and you have underlined the points in your paragraph that you could actually unpack, you got to figure out how you're going to unpack that. And you're going to use that 5WH method, right? And choose which line of inquiry that you're going to choose to answer in order to revise your sentences here. So humans, we would probably choose who, right? So how do we get specific with humans? What types of technology, right? Okay. In terms of people, right? Again, we could be specific on the who here. Spending time. So what do we mean by spending time, right? We can, let's redo that. Okay. Okay. So out of the 5WH method, we could say how, right? How are they spending their time? Okay. What forms of social media, right? Okay. Again, we could say who for individuals. Okay. What are they doing when they're sitting for hours, right? What's their activity, right? At what parts during the day? So when, right? Okay. Who is Jack Star? Right. Okay. What activity are we referring to? What do we mean by a return on our investment? So we could say why or how here. Which part of our human developed, what part of our human developed, right? You can add other W's in the 5WH method, right? So, boom, we've already got like 1, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different questions we could choose to answer, right? So the next part is in your ladder abstraction method, right? Is I asked you to actually determine the function of the paragraph here. So if we said that this was an essay that was condemning the addiction and overuse of technology by teenage kids or young adults, we wouldn't just start off condemning it right away. We would want to actually present the problem first. So part of the problem is showing the types of activity they're engaging in. So we're not going to get to a point where we're completely evaluating it. We're going to show the who, what, when, where, why, how of them consuming technology. How long are they doing it for? Who's doing it? When are they doing it, right? Those sorts of things. Before we move into sort of our argument, our evaluative argument of how it's harmful, which you can see that towards the end of the paragraph there as a transition. Now remember, your opening part of your body paragraph is going to stay broad, okay? Okay, so let me draw a little something here, okay? So your paragraph looks sort of like an inverted pyramid, but then it's going to move broad again towards the end. So this is the beginning of the paragraph. This is the end of the paragraph. So in terms of how broad and general your information is, you're going to start general and then you get more specific as you go through. But as you get to the end of your paragraph, you're going to start to broaden out again in terms of the level of specificity in terms of your information, because you're going to provide a transition in order to move into your next body paragraph in which you will start this process over again. Okay? Okay, so let's revise. Okay, so now that we have this, I'm going to start revising. Okay, humans. All right, so who do we want to talk to? Let's think about this. When you go to answer these questions, you want to answer them in terms of what's happening in reality. Where is this happening most? Where are you, right? More than likely, you're not in Japan. You're in America taking a college class at Northern Virginia Community College. So we're going to focus on Americans, right? Okay, Americans. Okay, so Americans these days are, so you know what? Let's do it this way. Sorry, I meant to show you this before. So I don't need to rewrite the whole sentence. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to keep that paragraph that I've diagrammed, and you have to keep that paragraph because you have to show your work and show me that you've gone through and you understand the process of applying the strategy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste the same paragraph here, and then I'm going to change my sentences as I go through. Now, mind you, when you're unpacking each generality or each sort of abstract word, you can change parts of the sentences, add in words or phrases, or you can add in whole sentences to answer some of these questions, right? It's kind of the sky's the limit. It's really up to you and your own intuition, right? Okay, so we're going to say Americans here, right? Americans these days are obsessed with technology. What type of technology? Well, the focus of my paper is on social media, right? So we'll say social media. Okay, that's a form of technology. Okay. All right, so if I'm going to get more specific, now remember the vertical ladder of abstraction, meaning you move from more general ideas at the top of your paragraph to more specific as you move throughout into the middle of your paragraph. I'm still answering the same questions as I did here about Americans, but what this is calling for is that I get more specific about the type of Americans. So again, we're moving from a more general idea to more specific in our second sentence, right? So we are going to say maybe an age group, right? Young adults. Okay. All right. So, and as I go through, I will delete my underlining and my parenthetical lines of inquiry from the 5WH method. Okay, parenthetical just means parentheses, right? So young adults spend so much of their time on media. All right. Well, I think I can keep some of that because spending time it is working down the ladder of a little bit of the ladder of abstraction, right? But I think I can add into the sentence here to get more specific to say how they are spending their time. So maybe I say young adults spend so much of their time on let's see, scrolling through media feeds. Okay, that's specific, right? But what else are they doing on social media, right? They're not just scrolling through social media. They're not just scrolling through people's feeds, right? They're doing other things as well. So we could say young adults spend so much of their time scrolling through media feeds, posting updates from their lives, okay, and commenting on the virtual lives of others. Okay. Can I get more specific than that? All right. So when you write in another sentence, you want to look back at that sentence and go, can I get even more specific than that? Can I provide, so this is still abstract. This doesn't show me what they're scrolling through on their feeds or what types of updates they are posting or what specific comments they are making, right? So I can start with the general activity and then provide an example to create a more vivid picture for my readers, right? So I could say something along the lines of, whether consumers get hooked through the dizzying, that's a good word, array of TikTok videos, posting every last recipe from their family cookbook, or giving friends likes or advice. They are choosing to expend a lot more of their energy virtually instead of engaging with other people in real time. So this latter part of the sentence that I just added, it accomplishes a couple different things, okay? One, it provides a concrete example of the generality that I made in the sentence before it, right? But also it helps me segue and transition into our next sentence, right? Because I'm literally going to be sort of commenting on how much time they're wasting as we go throughout the paragraph, right? So the focus of the topic is moving to the spending of time, right? So let's read. So what we have so far. So we've got in the original body paragraph, we have humans these days are obsessed with technology. People spend so much of their time on media. Some individuals sit for hours on technology while others are on at separate points throughout their day. Okay? So, let me back up. Let me rephrase that. Okay? Let's listen to the difference here because I didn't even get to the next sentence in the original. Let's just go with this. The original body paragraph says, humans these days are obsessed with technology. People spend so much of their time on media. Revised, Americans these days are obsessed with social media. Young adults spend so much of their time scrolling through media feeds, posting updates from their lives, and commenting on the virtual lives of others. Whether consumers get hooked through a dizzying array of TikTok videos, posting every last recipe from their family cookbook, or giving friends likes or advice, they are choosing to expend a lot more of their energy virtually instead of engaging with other people in real time. So you can already see, I literally, in my original body paragraph, went from 2 lines, right, to 5 lines. Just from unpacking those first 2 sentences, right? So you want to get specific, you want to get creative, use your imaginations, provide examples for everything that you say, okay? The goal here is to throw up on the page and then learn how to parse it back, right? Learn how to trim it back, okay? So once you get a lot of detail written out, we can figure out what's unnecessary and what we can cut. But for right now, we want to get a lot of ideas on the page so that you have a lot to play with, okay? So let's keep going, all right? So now we're at the second sentence in our original body paragraph, and I say, some individuals who sit for hours at a time on technology, while others are on it at separate points throughout their day. Okay? Pretty vague. All right. So we're here, right? Some individuals. All right. So we are looking at young adults. And so what's another specific word for young adults? Well, teenagers, right? Teenagers and young adults, they can be interchangeable. And teenagers are one of our most applicable demographics here because they're the ones that are probably the most on social media, the most out of any age demographic out there. All right, so teenagers, so I'm going to remove who, right? Sit for hours at a time on technology. So what do I have here? Teenagers sit for hours at a time. So again, we're gonna figure out what are they doing when they're sitting there, right? So they sit for hours at a time, okay? Absorbed. That's a good word for it. Absorbed. Okay. Into specific apps like Facebook, Snapchat, or Instagram. Okay? So teenagers sit for hours at a time. So this means they're sitting in one long activity, multiple hours in a row. Okay? Teenagers sit for hours at a time, absorbed into specific apps like Facebook, Snapchat, or Instagram, while others are on it at separate points throughout their day. Okay, so maybe we say, instead of getting more specific, what parts of throughout their day, while others consume media. So they're on it to be on something is still very vague. So we want to use specific action verbs, right? So while others consume media at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, on and off throughout their day. Now, this does a couple of things. Not only does it allow us to be specific about what points they are on and off their day, but it also gives this sort of persuasive, exaggerating effect. So as I'm going through and I'm editing this, I'm not only adding in more detail, but I'm also adding my voice into it, right? You know, saying somebody's on something at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? You're basically making the point that they're on it so often, right? So, teenagers sit for hours at a time, absorbed into specific apps like Facebook, Snapchat, or Instagram, while others consume media at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, on and off throughout their day. All right? According to Jack Starr, who is Jack Starr and why should I care? Well, Jack Starr's a psychologist. Okay, so then we'll say that, right? So, according to psychologist Jack Starr, and again, we can remove the underline here for your revised version. According to psychologist Jack Starr, kids spend upwards of 3 to 4 hours a day cumulatively on social media. Okay, all right. That's specific. So if I was going to pull from a source, their idea, I don't really want to change the idea much, right? Because it's their idea, and it's specific because it's actually naming the amount of time. So whether they are on social media intermittently throughout their day or they're sitting for hours at a time, cumulatively, either one adds up on average to 3 to 4 hours a day, which is a lot, guys. And it's unhealthy. Okay, so let's go to our next sentence. All right, so whether they, in our original body paragraph, whether they consume media all at once or in small tidbits, they are still wasting large swaths of time on an activity that has no real return on their investment in terms of human development. Okay, so that's the sentence we want to unpack. So what we're doing is we're still in the, middle to low parts of the ladder of abstraction, being specific in terms of our ideas, but we're also starting to move back up and get more broad because we're working to our final sentence, which is going to serve to wrap up the paragraph and transition to the next paragraph. Okay. All right. So let's look at this. So what activity? Well, we know all we really need here is a synonym for what we've been talking about in this whole paragraph, right? So we'll just say social media platforms. Okay. That has no real return on their investment. Okay, so I like that sentence. I don't necessarily need to change that sentence because no real return on their investment. It's a figure of speech, right? Which helps lock in my reader and paint a vivid picture. But I do need to specify what I mean a little bit, maybe by adding in another sentence after this, which is going to work together to explain both the lack of investment, return on their investment, and human development, right? So maybe I'll just add a sentence here that says, okay, social media does not help people to become deeper critical thinkers or more emotionally apt. And maybe I'll just add in a transition at the beginning of this sentence to reinforce what I'm saying, right? So I'll say, in fact, it has the opposite effect, right? In fact, consumption of media can cause more harm than good, right? All right. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of the diagramming here. and get rid of our lines of inquiry from the 5WH method, right? Okay, so you can see a huge difference here already, right? So let's go ahead and move this down, and I'm going to zoom in so you can see, right? That is double the paragraph just by unpacking the language that I already wrote in the original body paragraph. So again, I'm going to repeat to you guys, the key of knowing where you go next is to look at where you've already come, okay? So let's read the differences here. Let's see how much of a difference it makes in terms of the rhetorical impact when you read or listen to somebody making an argument about this, okay? Humans these days are obsessed with technology. People spend so much of their time on media. Some individuals sit for hours at a time on technology while others are on it at separate points throughout their day. According to Jack Starr, kids spend upwards of 3 to 4 hours a day cumulatively on social media. Whether they consume media all at once or in small bits, they are still wasting large swaths of time on an activity that has no real return on their investment in terms of human development. Consumption of media can cause more harm than good. Let's listen to the revision. Americans these days are obsessed with social media. Young adults spend so much of their time scrolling through media feeds, posting updates from their lives, and commenting on the virtual lives of others. Whether consumers get hooked through the dizzying array of TikTok videos, posting every last recipe from their family cookbook, or giving friends likes or advice, they are choosing to expend a lot more of their energy virtually instead of engaging with other people in real time. Teenagers sit for hours at a time, absorbed into specific apps like Facebook, Snapchat, or Instagram, while others consume media at breakfast, lunch, and dinner on and off throughout their day. According to psychologist Jack Starr, kids spend upwards of 3 to 4 hours a day cumulatively on social media. Whether they consume media all at once or in small bits, they are still wasting large swaths of time on social media platforms that have no real return on their investment in terms of human development. Social media does not help people to become deeper critical thinkers or more emotionally apt. In fact, consumption of media can cause more harm than good. Okay? So basically, this is my first body paragraph. This wraps up sort of the practical aspects of the activity, right? The when and how long and what they're doing. And then it forecasts where I'm going next, where I'm basically going to talk about the harm, right? So remember, whatever sentence that you're opening up your paragraph with, right? Every sentence that follows in your paragraph needs to directly reflect in a more specific way what that opening sentence is about, okay? So think about the rhetorical function of the paragraph, right? The rhetorical function of the paragraph was to show young adults in real time actively engaging in an obsession, right? Show obsession, right? When I get to my next paragraph, this is what this transition works to do. In fact, consumption of media can cause more harm than good. My next opening topic sentence will talk about sort of the detriments. So I could say something on lines of social media usage causes a lot more detriment than people realize. And that is synonymous with what I ended on, right? In terms of the idea, detriment also means harm, okay? We're going to get into sort of how you move from sentence to sentence and how you stay within unison with the topic of the paragraph on your next skill set and the next week, which are called cohesion and unity. So that will help you with those things. But for right now, the ladder of abstraction is what you want to focus on.